Your word, O Lord, is a lamp to our path. Reading from Hebrews chapter 7, verses 23 to 28. There is another difference. There were many of those other priests because they died and could not continue their work. But Jesus lives on forever, and his work as a priest does not pass on to someone else. And so he is able, now and always, to save those who come to God through him, because he lives forever to plead with God for them. Jesus then is the high priest that meets our needs. He is holy, he has no fault of sin in him. He has been set apart from sinners and raised above the heavens. He is not like other high priests. He does not need to offer sacrifices every day for his own sins first, and then for the sins of the people. He offered one sacrifice, once and for all, when he offered himself. The law of Moses appoints men who are imperfect to be high priests. But God's promise made with the vow, which came later than the law, appoints the Son, who has been made perfect forever. And from Mark chapter 10, verses 46 to 52. Then they came to Jericho, and as Jesus was leaving with his disciples and a large crowd, a blind beggar named Bartimaeus, son of Timaeus, was sitting by the road. When he heard that it was Jesus of Nazareth, he began to shout, "Jesus, Son of David, have mercy on me." Many people scolded him and told him to be quiet. But he shouted even more loudly, "Son of David, have mercy on me." Jesus stopped and said, "Call him." So they called the blind man. "Cheer up," they said. "Get up, he is calling you." So he threw off his cloak, jumped up, and came to Jesus. "What do you want me to do for you?" Jesus asked him. "Teacher," the blind man answered, "I want to see again." "Go," Jesus told him. "Your faith has made you well." At once he was able to see and followed Jesus on the road. This is the word of the Lord.
Who is this man sitting by the road? I wonder. I think I have seen him before. He seems to be begging here each time I leave Jericho for Jerusalem. Yes, poor thing. He's blind and has to beg for a living. But what more do I know about him? Nothing. Well, I have not stopped for him. I just passed him by. Now, what had the people treated, or how had the people treated this man in today's gospel story? He seemed to be a nuisance, shouting and making all this noise that disrupts our peace. We can hardly hear what Jesus is telling us while on the way. "Hey, can you be quiet?" Many of the people scolded the man and told him to shut up. "Son of David, have mercy on me," the man shouted even more loudly. Now, what would be more important to you if you were among the crowds following Jesus? Would you continue to shut him up? What would you do? But no one attended to the man's needs. No one cared about why he was shouting out for Jesus. Only when Jesus stopped and asked for him did the people talk to him. "Hey, cheer up, get up, he's calling you," they told him. But they changed their attitude when they realized Jesus wanted to talk with him. Even so, were they genuinely concerned about his needs? Or perhaps they were excited at an anticipated healing miracle they were about to witness. So set before us today, in today's gospel reading, is the indifference and carelessness of the crowd who grew impatient, with a blind beggar shouting out loudly, disrupting their focus on listening to Jesus. Is this what faith in Jesus is about? Where are their compassionate heart and caring ears? Where is a sense of kindness and justice, since that is what God desires us to be, as stated in Micah chapter 6, verse 8, to do justice, to love kindness, and to walk humbly with our God. So let's stop for this man. Let's find out more about this man. And rare as it is, this man in the gospel is given a name. If you flip through all the four gospels, most, maybe 95, 98% of people who receive healing from Jesus were nameless. And the author tells us he is Bartimaeus, son of Timaeus. But wait a minute. Bartimaeus isn't a name. You see, in Jesus' native language, that is Aramaic, Bar means son. Therefore, Bartimaeus means son of Timaeus. So the repetition in naming the man as the son of Timaeus is striking. Perhaps something about his father, Timaeus, is striking. You see, there is one school of thought that the name Timaeus came from an Aramaic word that means unclean or defiled. So in that case, Bartimaeus would mean son of the unclean or son of the defiled. But this makes sense when we consider that in Jesus' time, blindness, as well as many other physical illness or problems, were perceived as the result of someone's sin. We may recall in John chapter 9, when they saw a man born blind, the disciples asked Jesus, whose sin has led to his blindness? His or his parents? So in the context of this blind man, calling him the son of the unclean father makes sense, because it is certainly in their mindset the sins of his father that led to his blindness, in a sense. But to us, in our perspective, it is unkind and cruel. However, the Greek, in the Greek word itself, because it was written in Greek, in the Greek dictionary explains Timaeus in Greek means highly prized or honored. So in this case, the author could have named this man Bartimaeus to highlight him as a son of the highly prized because of what he had done. So our focus is naturally drawn on this man, particularly on his display of faith in Jesus. Jesus, Son of David, have mercy on us, on me. This man shouted out when he learned that Jesus was passing through. "Son of David, have mercy on me." He shouted again and again until he got Jesus' attention. And when Jesus asked him what he wanted, he requested, "Teacher, I want to see," or "I want to see again." Now you may notice in more modern or more contemporary Bible translations, including today's reading from the Good News translation, it is written as, "Teacher, I want to see again," indicating that the man was not blind. But if you flip through all the more older translations, like King James Version Bible or many others, it is just simply, "I want to see." Well, it does not really matter whether he was born blind or not, as that would not affect his trust and confidence in Jesus. But what matters to us is that he has displayed an active faith in Jesus as compared to the crowds. You see, Bartimaeus' faith is not displayed through reciting the correct confession or pledging to particular doctrines. It is his persistent conviction that Jesus can and Jesus will rescue him from his need. Now, while no one else had proclaimed this in Mark's Gospel, Bartimaeus recognized and used this term, "Son of David," as the title for Jesus. That's the only spot in the whole Gospel of Mark that appears, "Son of David." You see, this title, "Son of David," is more than a mere genealogical reference. It is a testament to Jesus' fulfillment of ancient messianic prophecies. The title points to the Messiah, the anticipated deliverer of Israel in the lineage of David. One spot that mentions that will be 2 Samuel chapter 7. Therefore, Bartimaeus' proclamation of Jesus as the Son of David turns the spotlight on Jesus, highlighting him or highlighting his identity as a long-awaited Messiah or Christ. Well, Bartimaeus may be physically blind and unable to see Jesus in person, yet his spiritual sight is wide open to recognize Jesus for who he truly is. Now, Bartimaeus' faith is exemplified in his persistence despite of hindrances. He was treated as a nuisance and asked to shut up as he sought to meet Jesus. Indeed, when the crowd despised and rebuked him for interrupting their moment with Jesus, faith helped Bartimaeus surmount such obstacles to press on. Faith convicts him to persevere in seeking Jesus and believing that Jesus will hear and answer his plea. Faith strengthens him to keep pursuing amid silence and often deterrence. Faith assures him that he will receive grace and compassion from Jesus in due course. You see, when Jesus stopped to respond to him, asking for him, Bartimaeus did the unthinkable. He threw off his cloak as he got up and moved towards Jesus. He threw off his cloak. You see, a blind person would typically have their personal effects close by, cling on to them. Otherwise, they may be unable to find them when needed without needing to ask for help. That's why they cling on to all these things, all their personal effects. So Bartimaeus seemed to be sure that he would not have a problem looking for his cloak later on. He expects to gain his sight. He's hopeful that Jesus will make a change in his health problem, that is, his blindness, and his livelihood problem, that he did not be a beggar anymore. Therefore, faith brings about a transformation within us as we place our trust in Jesus instead of trusting ourselves. Faith gives us the confidence to let go of our grip on things for a sense of security and grab on to the hand of Jesus instead. Now, what do you want me to do for you? Jesus asked him. I want to see again, was Bartimaeus' request. Well, in our perspective, we may think that he is asking for something impossible. Because in that case, can I be asking Jesus, I want to be free of cancer, so to speak? Well, I hope that any skepticism of the physical healing will not bog us down and distract us from hearing God's word. The focus of such gospel stories is not to impress us or to promise us with physical healing, but the spiritual wholeness that we may have through our demonstration of faith in Jesus. You see, Bartimaeus asked for the right thing because his intent is explained in the last sentence, which says, at once he could see and follow Jesus on the way. Follow Jesus on the way. So faith sets him on the way to follow Jesus. That is his driving force. So he asked for what would enable him to do that. Likewise for us. When we seek Jesus in prayers, let us ask boldly in faith what will allow us to walk closer with Jesus. Now, our first reading from Hebrews chapter 7 reassures us that Jesus is our high priest who meets our needs and who has offered himself as the sacrifice made once and for all for the sins of all humanity. And Jesus lives forever to plead with God for us and to come close to God. Hence, let us have the same confidence in Jesus as Bartimaeus, knowing that he loves us, cares for us, and will stop for us when we approach him in faith. Go, your faith has made you well. There is nothing more reassuring to hear this being said to us. I'm sure you would also long to hear this spoken to you. Go. Your faith has made you well. But is our faith in Jesus active like Bartimaeus? Or is it blind like the crowds? But today's story begins with blind Bartimaeus sidelined by the road, ignored and alone. But he was shouting out for Jesus. The crowds, on the other hand, who zealously followed Jesus, were blind to the needs of Bartimaeus, failing to show him any compassion and kindness. They rebuked him for being noisy and disturbing instead. But Bartimaeus pressed on in faith. He did not let the crowd's rebuke knock him back, but persisted in seeking Jesus. And by the end of the story, Bartimaeus was given sight, and he actively followed Jesus on the way. So we are all invited to join Bartimaeus too, to journey on with Jesus with an active, convicted faith, full of confidence and trust that Jesus will transform us and feed our needs. And we are urged to live out this faith actively by being ready to extend compassion and kindness to anyone we will encounter on the way. So may we live each day ahead with such an active faith. Amen.